Hey everyone, Lyssa here. I am so pleased today to have a quick conversation with Annie Gelfand. And I'm so impressed with the work that Annie is doing in the world. She is the founder, creator, and host of the Essence of Mastery Summit. She's also responsible for Radical Wisdom and Reach Coaching Mastery programs. She's been coaching and mentoring since 1997. There's a lot more to Annie than this little snippet, but we wanted to just keep it as a kind of a quick conversation because Annie has a couple things that make her very distinct. She's not only an MCC, she also is an assessor for ICF, for PCCs and MCCs. And she has a breadth of experience in those areas that can be really useful to coaches really looking at that transformation from PCC to MCC. And I wanted to pick her brain just a little bit today. So Annie, thank you so much for having an opportunity to talk to you today. Thank you for making time.
I'm delighted, Lyssa. You know I love these conversations.
It's the water you swim in.
That's right. The air I breathe, the water I swim in, and the reason I get up in the morning.
So I know for a lot of the coaches that I speak to, there's a transition that happens between PCC and MCC that can feel very, I don't know, amorphous. It's a fuzzy place. It's a weird intersection around the competencies and how we show up more fully in partnership with our clients. And I'm curious, based on your experience of listening to a lot of coaching and also doing a lot of assessing, as well as mentoring, what is something that really stands out to you as an assessor?
The partnership and depth are the two key words that distinguishes a PCC from an MCC. If you look at the MCC minimum skills requirement, the MSR, partnership and depth appears in so many of those competencies, or I don't know, we're not calling them competencies, markers, whatever you want to call them. And so I remember when I began to assess, I would ask the community, the MCC community of assessors, how do you assess or evaluate depth? Partnership's a little more easy to evaluate. So let's look at partnership for a moment because it's actually easy. I think it's easy.
Okay, good. Well, let's start with easy.
Partnership comes from trusting your client to have their own answers. So you're not telling them. I always say, ask, don't tell. You're not telling anything, you're asking. Because I've noticed that we seem to think that we know what's going on for someone else a lot more often than we admit. And so, let me start with me. I mean, I've had, 40 years of self-evaluation, self-reflection, that coaching mindset that we now include in our competencies, which I love. To really, because another thing I say is you're only as good a coach as you are self-aware. So wherever we're hiding things from ourselves, it's really hard to be with that with a client if you're not comfortable with it for yourself. So partnership, for instance, comes from asking your client, like listening carefully to what your client is saying and not assuming anything that they're saying that you get, that you know. So like the topic for my summit for the live event is plunging into the unknown. The reason I did that topic is because I felt like coaches weren't very comfortable with not knowing. Ever since we were kids, not knowing something has been shameful. I mean, how many, right?
Yeah, we spend an awful lot of time becoming experts. To let go of our expertise for the unknown is a difficult transition.
Well, ever since I can remember in school, it began in school when the teacher would call on you, and how okay was it to say, I don't know?
Not so okay.
Go to your first job. How okay was it to say, I don't know, right? I'm paying you. Of course you should know. So translate that later on to somebody who's begun their own business and now they're being paid. And now you're going to say, I don't know. Like it's not something that's comfortable, right, for us to own that not knowing. And yet
Mhm.
that not knowing is the essence of mastery. That's why it's called the Essence of Mastery Summit. The not knowing place is what gets us really present. It's what gets us fully into curiosity, and it gets us into trusting our client to have their own answers.
Yeah.
And then from there comes partnership, because you're trusting your client enough to have their own answers, or even if they think they don't, but we stay curious enough to ask that, to dive down deep. So then you get the depth. So the two are really together, partnership and depth. How does that all land?
Yeah, no, it really, I mean, there's a couple of things that you said that are really important to, I think, uh, make another shout out for this issue of our unconscious assumptions. Assuming we know what somebody's thinking, feeling, what words mean to people, we go based on assumption a lot. And as a result of that, it's almost like we're skipping stones across the top of the water, because our assumptions keep us at the surface level, versus what you're talking about, where we take the opportunity to really assume nothing, be really curious with the client around what's showing up in the conversation, but that by doing that, we actually allow the stone to sink below the surface, right? And we have the much more important, deeper conversation around the things that are really driving whatever this topic is that the client has brought forward.
You've actually pointed to a great metaphor. Pat, Pat Williams, he's
Yes.
also an MCC. He was my guest in 2019 and my guest in 2018, and on the summit. And he said a great thing I love to quote over and over again. He said that PCC coaching is snorkeling, while MCC coaching is diving,
Yeah.
scuba diving. So it's not to say that PCC coaching isn't okay. There's a place for PCC coaching and a place for MCC coaching. The thing about MCC is when you stretch your skills to that extent, you are that disciplined in your application of those core competencies at that level, then you have an unconscious competence that gives you an enormous breadth that really gets to give your clients far more traction and leverage to create the sustainable change they're truly longing for. PCC coaching is often good intention, but MCC coaching is sustainable change.
Yeah.
So when you're really looking for something deep, some long-held limiting belief that you keep going around and round in circles, or you think that it's one thing and you just don't know, you're going, what is this that's in my way? You like, what is that? MCC coaching is brilliant. And until you've experienced it for yourself, you don't really know until you've actually had a truly masterful coach you. And so masterful in the sense that they get out of their way so that you can get out of your own way. In the sense that the depth is revealed so that the true motivation and driving forces are revealed, that the partnership is there and explicitly, so that the trust, the safety that is really paramount to them choosing something different, to being willing to look in hard places, that trust is so paramount to have there. I tell this story a lot. A long time ago when I was looking for a certified coach, for a mentor coach to see me through my certification program, I wanted to go for an MCC. And so I went and I had a conversation with a few MCCs, and this one particular one didn't know me from anything, immediately gone on to challenging me, like right out of the gate, challenging me, like telling me all these things that he thought he knew about me. Well, you are like this and you're like that. And so what has you doing that? And it was so confrontational that I just wanted to say, you're offensive. He might have been right, for all I know. Maybe he was right, but his style was so confrontational. He had no trust built up with me to have that ability to do that. He had no safety to make me feel that I wanted to go there. Rather instead, exactly, I put up my wall and I said, you're not the coach for me. And what I took away from that all these years later was, because Fran Fisher and I used to have this conversation a lot. I was always like, what is mastery? Like, what is an MCC coach? And it's honestly, Lyssa, I know you know this too, because your heart is so big and you have so much caring, kindness, and compassion emanating out of you. I know you know this too, but it is really that. It's our hearts. It's our ability to be whatever our clients bring, the hard stuff, the good stuff, the bad stuff, whatever it is, without judgment, to just be with them.
Yeah, and the thing that's really showing up as you're talking to is this reminder that I really pay attention to in my own coaching, which is I don't really have a horse in this race. Whatever the race is that the client is running, I don't have a horse in the race. So I don't need to be attached to the outcome that they feel is important. What I need to be attached to is the curiosity that helps them explore all the factors that are in the way, all the hurdles between here and where they want to go, so that they can navigate them and be at choice and be at full choice. And so again, this idea of having this conversation that allows for the depth. I mean, I say this a lot lately. This seems to be one of my favorite things to say, which is if they can Google it, they don't need you. Right? Like if we're just talking about fixing a calendar or time management, they don't need you for that. They need people. A person needs a coach because that person's willing to go, what is it that you're saying you long for, but you're not honoring and not valuing enough to give the time to? Like, what is that? That's the far more interesting kind of conversation. And so as I hear you talk, it's really that exploration of partnering where the client is leading you, the coach, through the conversation. It's interesting. Somebody once said, and I don't know where it was that I heard this, and I don't know who said it anymore, but it wasn't me. But somebody once said, coaches at an MCC level are willing to ask the questions that the client is not, that A, the coach doesn't know the answer to, but also B, that are going to challenge the client to their own internal awareness. Right.
Nicely put.
And so I keep that kind of keyed in the back of my mind whenever I'm working with people. But in a nutshell, this issue of no assumptions and really being present allows for the depth, right? And so that partnership and the depth are the yin and yang, yin and yang, I guess. I'll just go with that. Obviously my Zen Buddhism is not so good, but it's really that sort of flow that happens between these two elements. Yeah.
Christine Martin said to me when I was preparing for my MCC, which took me 1 full year to prepare, when you lean on those core competencies, the flow shows up. And so as assessors, what we're looking for is flow. We're looking for the coach to be confident, but we're not evaluating what the client is saying. We're evaluating the responsiveness of the client, of the coach to the client.
Yes.
So whether the client gets what they want is really great, but as assessors, we're really focused on, is the coach being observant? Are they being responsive? Are they stepping over emotions? How are they at noticing things and like all those core competencies? We start off at the PCC level because we've got beautiful PCC markers to delineate so that we can collect evidence, which makes it very, very obvious that they've reached the PCC level. At the MCC level, the ICF is working on, we don't have markers yet. And we still have to integrate the new language into the revised core competencies, into the MSR, for instance, the minimum skills requirements. But it doesn't change the fact that we're looking for nuances at the MCC level. And so the depth and the partnership and the no assumptions, and I call this unconditional positive regard.
Yeah,
which,
I love that.
Call it non-judgment, whatever you want to call it, but that's unconditional positive regard where your client doesn't get to be wrong.
Yeah. And from my perspective too, there's a place where anything that comes up is just another point of curiosity, right? There's nothing that can't come up, because whatever comes up is just like, and what does that tell you, right? Like, what do you need to take from that? What is the experience that you're wanting to have in relationship to that versus this is what you need to do, right?
This is why I love having conversations with you, Lyssa, because you get all that, and that sort of tonality that you have in your voice, like that natural curiosity that shows up. I mean, that's what we're looking for, right? And why are we looking for it? Because it actually is effective.
Yeah.
It works.
It's honestly, it's great if the coach's brain lights up with ideas for their client, but it isn't all that useful to the client. What's far more important is that the client's brain lights up with all kinds of ideas for the client, which really goes back to what you said earlier, which is, how do you create sustainable results? And the sustainable results come out of that embodied experience that the client has. Like, there's no way around that.
Teach a man to fish, although it should be teach a person to fish. Teach a person to fish is far more effective than giving them a fish. And that's the same that applies for coaching. You tell them something, you can give them ideas, but the sustainable change, the powerful change that they're truly looking for, don't keep it a best kept secret. The client has something they want. Our job is to find out what that is, even when they don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And when they don't know, just another place to get curious. Right.
Right. Right on. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this today. This snippet of coaching wisdom that you dropped upon us. It was a big snippet. It was a very healthy serving of really important coaching wisdom. So thank you for filling us up with this beautiful understanding. And Annie, I am so looking forward to the Essence of Mastery and participating in it. I know we have it coming up again in August and then again in December. So there's lots of opportunities for people to participate. And if you're looking to go from PCC to MCC specifically, this is the program you want to go and listen to master coaches talk about how these nuances show up for them, so that you can find the pathway that will support you in your own nuances. And I think the other piece, if you're an ACC moving to PCC, it can never hurt to be coaching higher than your pay grade. As you do that, it will, I know for myself as a PCC assessor, the people who show up and they have a good grasp of the competencies, and those are woven artfully through their conversations, just makes it so easy to pass them. And please help us help you. Make it easy on all of us by just leaning into your own capacity to be in partnership and to go deep with your clients that you work with.
Well, trust those core competencies. The ICF has been around now for 26 years. It's just been revised, but how much has it been revised? So little. I mean, we've changed the emphasis of some words. They're really pretty much the same, and they're solid. And so when you lean on those core competencies at the MCC level, the change that's powerful, that's available to your clients. So just a quick correction, it's essenceofmasterysummit.com. That's the website.
Okay,
the next live event is September 14th, 15th, and 16th. And December 7th, 8th, and 9th, we're going to be doing promotions in August and November. And so I know Lyssa's going to reach out to all of you to let you know what special VIP rates she can get you. And so I can't wait till they all hear you, because the person that is Lyssa and the brilliance that is you and the interview that we had. So the summit is a combination of, it's a blended learning event, and Lyssa's event, Lyssa's conversation that we had was just phenomenal. We're getting such great feedback on that. So I can't wait for the world to know more of Lyssa.
Thank you very much. And thank you for correcting me, Annie. And I will put links below, and happy coaching to everyone. And thank you, Annie. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You're welcome.